Hello developers, welcome to this video. In today's video we are going to explore software version control and collaboration with GitHub specifically for Unity developers. If you are developing something in Unity, then this can be a useful guide for you. So not wasting any more time, let's get started. So these are the topics that I'm going to cover in this video. So you can learn about GitHub desktop application, about Git CLI and the basic commands of Git CLI, and you will learn about Git branches and also Git repositories. Let's see the procedure of the working pipeline of the GitHub and Unity. So firstly, we will have to install the GitHub desktop application and Git CLI into our computer so that we can collaborate with GitHub and Unity. And then we have to create a Git repository into the Git remote server, and then we have to clone that repository into our local Git repository. And then if we make any changes into our project, then we can also we will learn to commit the changes and how to push those into the Git remote server. We will also learn about creating branches and how to merge multiple branches, how to create branches from commits, and what are the stash, and how to discard changes that is already made. There are two methods to use GitHub. The first one is GitHub desktop application, and the second one is Git command line interface, also known as Git CLI. So I'm going to show you the first method only, but I'll show how you can execute the second method also, but I will not explain it that much. So let's start with the first one. First of all, you need to download the GitHub desktop application. To download the GitHub desktop application, simply search on Google GitHub desktop application download, and from the first link you can download the GitHub desktop for your PC. After downloading the GitHub desktop application, install the software and sign in into your GitHub account. After signing in, it will tell you to clone a repository from the remote server. If you click on the clone repository, it will show you something like this. So from here you can search for your GitHub repositories, or you can put the URL of the GitHub remote repository link here and simply click on clone. But first of all, we need to create a repository into our Git remote server. Let's create a Git repository into the remote. So this is my GitHub profile, and I'll go to repositories and I'll click on this button here, new, and I'll write the name of my repository. In this case, I'm going to create a game called Racing Saga. So this will be my name of the repository, and in the description I'll say racing game in Unity. You can put any description according to your project details, and you can also choose between two levels of security, which is public or private. And if you set this to public, anyone can view your repository, and if you set this to private, then only you can access this repository. You can also add a readme file here. If you want to add a readme file, you have to click on this. So I want to add a readme file, and this is very important, add.gitignore. When you are working with Unity, there are many temporary files generated into the Unity project folder, and you don't want to push them into the Git server because it's going to be a little bit heavy. So you will ignore those temporary files. To ignore those, you have to add a git ignore, and you can find it here. If you search Unity, you will find the Unity git ignore for your project. So you will add this add this Unity git ignore template into the repository, and you will simply create repository by clicking on this create repository button. You can see our repository is created. So we can search this repository from our GitHub desktop application here, from file clone repository. We can search it from here by typing racing. So this is our repository, or we can put the URL of the repository here, like from here we will copy this URL and paste it here, and this will clone our repository into our local repository. So you can set the local path also from here. Currently it's inside the documents inside the GitHub of my PC. You can choose any location as you want. So I'll simply click on clone to clone this repository into my Git local repository. So it's saying cloning repository, and our repository is now present into our local repository. Now we have to create a Git Unity project to starting working with this. So we will open our Unity Hub and we will create a new project. We'll simply put any name or as you want, and we will simply create our new project. So our project has been created. Now we have to put this project into the local Git repository of our computer. To do that, I will go to show in Explorer from here, and this is our total project file that has been generated by Unity. Let's copy all these. Now we will copy this whole folder and paste it into our Git local repository. So we can go to our Git local repository from here, show in Explorer, and this is our local Git repository, and we will simply paste the folder into this repository. So our project has been transferred into the Git local repository. If we now go to the GitHub desktop application, we will see there are 28 changes. It means the project has been transferred into our local repository, and these are the changes that we have been made so far. Something happened here. Firstly, we will open the git ignore here, and you can see the library temp, obj, build, builds, logs, and user settings. These folders will be excluded when we put our changes into Git. You will notice it also from here in the GitHub desktop application. You can see that there are 28 changes, but because of the git ignore, it is ignoring some of the folders that is present into our root folder. Like if I open it up, you can see there are assets, library, logs, packages, project settings, temp, and user settings, but it is not getting those. It is ignoring those folders which are temporary. Okay, so after making any change, you have to create a commit for these changes to push it into your Git repository. Now type create project, or you can type anything as you want. You can also put some description here also, like project is created in Unity, and there is a button for commit to main. Click on it, and now we successfully committed our first commit. And there is a button called push origin. If you click in this button, it will push the changes into our Git remote server. So currently our Git remote server looks like this, but when we push it, and reload this Git repo, you can see the changes has been pushed into the server. And if we go to the GitHub desktop application now, there are no changes because all changes has been pushed into the Git repo. If we go to the history, we can see that this is our last commit that was done seconds ago. Create project. So this is how you can make changes and commit changes, and you can push those commits into the Git repository. Now if we go to the project and make another change, like if I create a plane here, save the scene and go to GitHub desktop, and now you can see there are two changes. And now we can create another commit, added object, create on this button and push origin. Go to history, and you can see we have another commit which is added object. Now there are 3 commits. With these commits we can create another branches, like if I want to create a new branch from this previous commit, which is create project, we can do that. To do that, we will simply click right button and create branch from commit, and we can create a new name for the branch. Click on create branch, and now this branch is containing the previous 2 commits. And if you switch to main branch, you can see there are 3 commits there. So we have successfully created a new branch from create project commit, and that branch is containing the previous 2 commits. And now go to Unity, and it is saying to reload. We will reload this scene, and see there are nothing here because those changes are present into the main branch, not in this branch. So now we will create another change into this branch. We will create a sphere. Okay, that's it. And go to the GitHub desktop, and there is one change, and we will push this change into Git, added sphere, commit. We will have to publish the branch first, and it has also been pushed into the Git repo. Now go to the main branch and see the history. There is no history for the last commit because that is present into the temporary branch here. But if we want to add this commit into the main branch, then we can merge these 2 branches to get the same updates in both branches. To do that, we will go to main branch, and there is a button called choose a branch to merge into main. Click on that, and there are 2 branches. One is main, and we are merging the temp branch into the main branch. So we'll select the temp branch, and it is saying merge and it is saying there will be one conflict when merging temp into main. And you can solve this conflict also. You'll have to go to the create a merge commit. It is saying that the sample scene has two conflicts, and you can keep change from the main branch or the temp branch. So as you are in the main branch, if you think that you want to keep the changes from main branch, then choose this, and if you want to keep the change from temporary branch, then choose this. I'm going to click on the main and continue merge, and you have to push it. And if I go to history, we can see the added sphere is now added into the main branch. So that's how you can merge between branches, and this is how you can get the latest updates from branches to branches. Now let's create another change into the project, and I'm going to create a cylinder into the project and go to GitHub desktop application. Now you can see one change here, but you didn't mean to do it. Like you planned something to do, but you, after doing that, you didn't like it, so you want to change that. To do that, you can discard this change. To discard it, you can simply click in this and discard all changes, and this will discard all the changes that has tick on it. So I'll click discard all changes, and our unintentional changes has been discarded. Now create another change. I'll create a capsule here and go to GitHub desktop, and I can see one change. And if I switch to temporary branch now, it will say you have changes on this branch, would you like to do with them? What do you like to do with them? You can leave this change to main, or you can bring this change to temp. But if I leave this changes to main, what will happen? Let's switch the branch. And there is nothing into the temp branch. Now let's get back to the main branch, and you can see there are some stashed changes. So the changes that has been left into this branch, that is stashed now. So go to this stashed changes, and you can see two options here. One is restore and the other one discard. So if you click discard, it will permanently deleted, but if you click on restore, it will be restored into the project. So that is how discard changes works. Now I can see how you can create another branches. You can create another branches from here. Like if you click here, it will tell you to create the new name of the new branch. So I have already showed you how to create a branch, so I'll ignore this one. And these are the basic functions of Git commands which is necessary for day-to-day life, and I have covered all the topics from GitHub desktop application. Now we will move on to the method 2, which is Git command line interface. Let's start the method 2. First of all, you need to install the Git CLI into the computer. To install Git CLI, simply go to Google and search Git CLI download. Click on the first link here and download for your preferred platform. I'm using Windows, so I'll click on Windows. People who are using Mac or Linux, you can download from there. You can download and install any of these, but I'll do the 64-bit Git for Windows setup. Click on that. After downloading it, simply install it into your PC. Now let's go to the Git local repo, and I am inside the Git local repository folder. Now I'll go to the directory explorer, show more option, and you can see the open git bash here. So click on it, and this is the git CLI we were talking about. Now you can write commands to do things into the remote server, also the local server. So first of all, after installing the software, after installing the git CLI, you have to clone a repository to starting working with it. As I have already cloned the repository, so I don't need to do that, but I'll show you how you can do that. There are some basic git commands that you can use into the git CLI. The first one is git clone. If you want to clone a git repository as before, you have to take the git repository link from here, and you have to write like this: git clone, and simply paste the link you have copied. I'll get rid of the extra characters here. And if I command this, it will clone the repository. So that's how you can clone your repository. Okay, now there are another git commands that you can use here, like git to create a new branch, you can use git branch and the branch name, then git push and git branch and git checkout. So there are plenty of git commands here. There are more you can find in Google. So try this git bash here and let me know how it is going. So these are the two methods by which you can use GitHub while you are developing on Unity.